On this special episode of Brian the Guys, Professor Brian and Tyclops give you an explanation for the X-Men timeline. See our full episode with video on YouTube and listen here for the audio. Let's freaking go. Welcome to Brian the Guys. I'm your host, Brian Peters, the man child of steel, and here with me is Tyclops.
That's right.
So this is the first time we ever recorded a video for the podcast. So we're testing some stuff out and see if it works.
Yeah.
So today, Professor Brian Peters and Professor Tyclops are going to try to explain the X-Men timeline. So as Deadpool Wolverine is coming out and as movies have come out in X-Men universe, the timeline has been all over the place. So many inconsistencies. So what we're trying to do today is Tyler has worked on this for months. He had a theory like months ago. I've been working on mine the past week, trying to find those inconsistencies and have things make sense to try to get you a chronological way. But Tyler thinks he's cracked the code. I think I might have cracked the code.
Let's see how we do this. We have not talked about
We
it.
have not talked about this.
The only thing we have said is like little things like, did you do this? Or did you think like include this? And that's it. And we'll explain that more as we go.
He will probably make it less complicated, whereas I will probably make it very detailed and overcomplicated.
This
But
will be fun.
it'll be fun. So Tyler, go at it.
All right. So I'm going to explain my timeline and my thoughts here. I will point out some faults I believe are in the filmmaker's point of view for not taking the property seriously and just not thinking. So we'll start there. Okay. So this is our line here.
Oh, you're actually drawing a literal timeline.
Yeah.
Oh man, look at you.
This is our first point here. And since we're looking at the Fox films, okay, I'm going to talk more in the films because I believe each film does have some flashbacks or things that are included that I believe that still works in their established time. But the first film will be what we call XOW, X-Men Origins Wolverine, which for the most part is placed in the 80s. Okay. The main part of the film. Now we move along to X-Men, just X. The next film would be X2, X3, and then the Wolverine. Okay. So I'm going to actually just put TW for the Wolverine. Now, as we get here, let's talk about a couple things real quick. One, in X-Men Origins Wolverine, you have Victor played by Liev Schreiber. In X-Men, you have Tyler Mane. Now, my working headcanon for this is just my interpretation is if you look at when Victor leaves, and part of his whole theory in X-Men Origins Wolverine is that he wants to make himself better so that he can be better than Logan. So my thought process is we know that Wolverine/Logan loses his memories, that Victor does stuff and experiments with his mutation that furthers his mutation and actually causes him mental problems because we know that he at some point has interacted with Stryker and was trying to get Stryker to help him. That's why when we get to X-Men, neither of them really know who each other is, but there is this kind of familiarity of they think there's something there, like how he's obsessed with the dog tags. That's my headcanon I'm working with. Now, we have the Wolverine. We know that the Wolverine has the post-credit scene that talks about the reintroduction of Trask Industries. Okay. Now remember, this takes place in the 80s, and this is roughly in the 2000s. Okay. Here is Days of Future Past, which is our fulcrum point. This is the future in the 2000s. Now, at this point, we have Wolverine travel back to the past. But using logic here, what happens is the fulcrum point is retrocoaxial.
Say that again.
It's retrocoaxial.
Say that 3 times fast.
I can. Retroaxial. So basically what happens is when Wolverine leaves from this point in time, he travels, he creates a new timeline branch with the fulcrum being Days of Future Past. Now this, he travels to here, which is the 70s of the new timeline it's establishing, because time travel, you can't travel back here, but by traveling back, he actually creates a whole new branch of reality. So this timeline would be Days of Future Past, 70s, but back here is the 60s, which is X-Men First Class. So on this timeline now, we have boom, which will be the 80s, which is Apocalypse. Okay. The 90s, which is Dark Phoenix. Okay. And here we continue, we get Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2. We'll come back to those in a minute. But also, what I forgot to mention here, that it almost is a throwaway movie, but right here, New Mutants, because there's really not much to it, but it takes place in the 80s. So, when
That's the one I have to fight you on the most.
Okay.
That decision right there.
Good. I've only watched it once because it was that bad and I really hated it. Because
For it to go in the 80s, oh,
I mean, we could actually literally put it anywhere we want and it doesn't matter.
but it does.
So,
To be continued.
so when Wolverine is here at the Fulcrum Point and he travels back here, he does not return to this timeline.
No, he does not, Tycons.
It creates a new branch of reality.
Yeah.
And this new branch of reality is where we'll eventually end up with Logan.
See, the visual aid is so important. That's why we had to do this on film.
Now, what I do want to talk about here is in Deadpool 2, we know that we have Cable that comes back here to the events of Deadpool 2. Okay? And then at the end of Deadpool 2, which is when he takes Cables and starts cleaning up the timeline, Deadpool's actually screwing up and branching, which is how my theory is, and we will add to this once we see the film, is because we know that he actually jumps universes by stopping Ryan Reynolds from coming Green Lantern. And we actually know that he comes here to this branch of reality. That's how the TVA shows up for Deadpool 3, which technically would be a splintered branch from this reality. Now, I have not included, until we actually see Deadpool 3, I will incorporate the MCU Beast appearance and Professor X, how they fit, because as of right now, my theory works as they are just, from all this shenanigans here, other branches of reality. Questions, Sir Bryan?
Where do you put Once Upon Deadpool?
It's just it's a director's edit. And be like saying the same thing as like, where do I put the road cut?
Okay, fair. Okay.
I mean, you could take New Mutants. If you wanted, you could throw it here or here, but it's the one movie.
Oh, hey, everybody. Okay. So there are some things in my explanation that is not too far off from yours. Not too far off. But I made sure to try to hit every single freaking inconsistency.
So what's the inconsistencies?
I'll get to it when I explain mine.
But I'm saying, once you take Days of Future Past out of the initial timeline, there aren't any other than Sabretooth and Victor.
Oh, there is, my friend. New Mutants cannot happen in the 80s.
Okay.
Because, and I'll get to it probably more in mine, is something happens in New Mutants that is directly related to Logan.
Which, it's the
directly related.
It's the Essex stuff.
Yes.
But that's the thing, is it could happen here. Like I said, you could put it anywhere, but it doesn't have to exist on this timeline because you have Essex that could be here or in here, but the actual events could be here. So, I mean, if you want it, we can just put New Mutants right here on the Logan branch.
That's fair. That's fair. We are in total agreement that Days of Future Past changes everything.
Mm-hmm.
Changes everything. So how do you explain the age differences in the 60s, 70s, and 80s?
That is what's about the filmmakers' neglect. Okay. Because they set this in the 60s. Like I said, they prominently wanted that in the 70s. But I mean, you could go into the mutation slows down their aging. But I feel that's just a neglect on the filmmakers, period, for not taking consideration. Because here's my biggest problem. Okay. I'm gonna use. But
Okay.
We'll say, just for giggles, Alexander Summers is 19 in the 60s. It's
Yep.
what, 63 or 64
63.
when Days of Future Past takes place?
I'm sorry. No, Days of Future Past
Or not Days,
takes
no,
place in 62.
first class. Okay.
62.
Okay, it's 62. Okay, let's say he's 19. There is no way he is Scott's brother when we get to Apocalypse.
Correct.
He would be Scott's dad. So that's when I say that's negligence on the filmmakers for not really doing their homework and thinking that they're jumping almost 10 years in each film.
Okay.
Because if you look, we know that there's age progression from when we meet Cyclops in X-Men Origins to when we meet him here. So they are aging. So I feel that that's just negligence on the filmmakers for how
Sure
they
as hell
built it
is.
here. Now, I'm not going to break it down that they recast Kitty Pryde and we call it Pyro.
Fire Fist.
Yeah.
No.
How Kitty Pryde's in this movie and this movie was completely different. The person in this movie, that's just casting changes, and we'll roll with that. Just like I'm not going to have a whole different MCU with Terrence Howard compared to what's his face.
Okay.
But that is how I look at how the X-Men work, because we know that the Wolverine ties back to X3.
Yep.
And Origins. We know that the Wolverine filters into Days of Future Past.
Okay.
But Logan does not pre-reference anything other than the Essex stuff you mentioned in New Mutants. And like I said, I watched New Mutants.
Incorrect.
Okay, what does it reference?
You'll see when I do my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else with yours?
Because it also references comics that don't exist here.
That's right.
So that's why it's its own branch of reality.
That's correct. Logan has to be its own branch of reality.
Mm-hmm.
Has to be.
Any other questions?
Okay, so when Logan comes back
Mhm.
and the new timeline's created, what year does he come back?
About, let's say, time
2023?
Yeah, like I didn't break it down by the whole years just because I just went by the films where they set themselves up.
Okay.
Because
So
he would come back the moment he left.
So if he comes back in 2023, what year does this movie happen? The first X-Men movie.
20. It says it's supposed to take place in the 2000s because it says present day, and when the movie came out, it was the year 2000.
So how old would you say Jean Grey is in X-Men 1?
That's no mid 30s, 30s.
Okay. So how old would you say she is when Wolverine comes back?
She'd be like in her 50s, is what you're. But if you go by some of the theories that the mutations slow down aging, yeah, I think too. We have in real time from when this movie came out to when Days of Future Past came out, 10 years passed, 14 years passed.
Yep.
So it's enough of that Hollywood magic to go, yeah, their age over.
Okay. After this, vote on who you think had the best timeline. Explanation. Mine's a little bit more anal because
These are Bryan.
it's a Bryan. Yeah, there we go. But
Because you cannot have First Class in this with these movies at all.
you cannot. And everybody does it.
Because
I see all these TikToks and people are like, no, this is the first movie. No, it's not. Because in this movie, he says he meets Eric when he's 17.
also, you have, if we're doing chronological,
Yep.
you would have after this movie, shortly after X-Men Origins Wolverine, right before we get to X-Men,
Yep.
you would have Charles showing up, or maybe even before, getting Jean Grey, and he's walking.
Sure is.
So he can't have gotten paralyzed in the 60s and then been walking here.
Spot on. So
That's, and
top marks.
there's too many inconsistencies if you put First Class and try to align it up with this timeline.
Yes.
Because you also have Emma Frost here and Emma Frost here.
Yep. You sure do.
That's why you have to differentiate. So Papa Peters,
That's a good one.
Professor Peters is up next.
Cool. I hope you can read my writing because I have horrible handwriting. But
We'll do our best.
Do our best.
Make sure, but it's not hard.
all right, guys. So which color should I use?
Start with black.
Start with black?
Yeah.
I'll start with black. All right. So, yeah, I'll try that. I might move around a lot because that's what I do because I'm answering. Okay. So I got to pull up my phone. So I have my,
Also, you didn't even ask me about how Beast was a human in X-Men 1 and then not in X-Men 3.
I have that in my thing.
So, all right, my explanation was
Hey, Tyler, come back on screen. What's your explanation for that?
we know that in the other timeline that's not here, he removed a serum. So there is to say that the Beast could have emitted a serum here and he was taking it to a human, or his mutation hadn't advanced far enough to be an actual beast yet, that he was still just much like he was in the original X-Men book where he was just a big dude. Simple as that.
But, okay, so, but if he's like taking the serum, like, I had a brain fart.
Okay.
My brain shut off. Okay, so you have him taking the serum.
Or he just hasn't mutated to being pure blue beast yet. Because we know in the comics when we first appeared, he was just a big dude.
He was
And then eventually he turned into. So I can just say that he was just a big dude.
just a big dude.
But also, once again,
What other inconsistencies did you want to talk about?
once again, first class in the original timeline, Mystique doesn't work. Go, Bryan.
It sure doesn't. Okay. All right. I'm going to probably be picking up my phone and put it down like every 5 seconds. Okay. So our timeline, and I'll try to make this as legible as possible, everybody. Okay. So our timeline, oh, yeah, I guess I'll put it up here. So our timeline begins with X-Men, the first movie. First movie is released. Okay. Yes. So, and there, scroll down a little bit. My apologies. Okay. So, important things in this movie. This movie starts in 1944, which is where we're introduced to Magneto. So, Magneto's parents were taken to the Holocaust. His powers are revealed. Okay. We are there and introduced to Jean Grey. Jean Grey is about 36. So, I looked up the ages of these actors and actresses to try to get their age. I'm trying to get this as airtight as I can, everybody, because that's who I am. I'm a man of details. So Jean Grey is about 36. Okay. Now, Sir Ian McKellen in 2000. So we'll say this is in 2000. For the time being, we'll say it's in 2000. So in 2000, Jean Grey is about 36. Sir Ian McKellen in real life is 61. But in 1944, he would have been 5 years old when the Holocaust thing happened. So we can't have that happen. So Magneto in this movie is about 71 years old. He was about 15 in 1944. Okay. So in this movie, though, he's about 71 years old. Okay. Charles Xavier is about 60 years old in this movie. Now, you're probably saying, Bryan, why didn't you start with X-Men Origins Wolverine? Why didn't you start with First Class? I'll get there, everybody. But 2000 definitely started it. In this movie, Wolverine also has a leather jacket with orange stripes, which puts in pair with X-Men Origins. But X-Men Origins didn't happen before this. Wolverine has adamantium claws. They come through his fingers in between it. His dog tag says Wolverine. Okay, I'm not going to write everything that goes in my head. Follow with me, everybody. But his dog tag says Wolverine. Sabretooth has long hair and he's very animalistic. So Sabretooth is different than he was in X-Men Origins Wolverine. Therefore, the Sabretooth in this movie is not the same Sabretooth. In this movie, Cyclops is about 27. Yep, I said it. He's about 27. Jean is much older than Cyclops. Storm is about 34. So we can put our three people that are consistent in these X-Men movies, we can put them roughly in about their early 30s if we want to be safe. Just say early 30s. Okay. Wolverine in this movie, X-Men 1, does not remember Sabretooth. They have no memory of each other. But it's not clear if Sabretooth knows Wolverine. Because like Cyclops said, Sabretooth picked up those dog tags. He is obsessed with those dog tags. So it's not completely clear whether Sabretooth knows who Wolverine is, but Wolverine doesn't know who he is. I do have in here that Katie Pryde appears to be is like 14 years old, played by another actress. That's not irrelevant.
Yes, I just
Like Katie Pryde's in it, not relevant. Jubilee's also in this movie, not relevant. I'd say Iceman is about 18 in this movie. Like roughly 17, 18, maybe 16, whatever. He's roughly around that age. Okay. Now, Charles says, I better just put this cap back on. We don't want to dry out. So Charles says in this movie that Wolverine has been drifting with no memory for 15 years. So that means that he lost his memory in 1985, and he lost memory and maybe he got shot with adamantium. We don't know. But so that means this movie can take place in 2000, but mostly early 2000s. So I give it 2000 to 2005, roughly. But 15 years, that means that in 1985 is when Wolverine has surgery. Okay. Jean and Cyclops were the first students. Cerebro was built in the basement, and Magneto helped him build it, is what Charles says. Charles says he discovered his powers as a kid. He met Magneto at age 17. So that means he met him in 1957, and Eric would have been about 28. Toad is in this movie. Toad is roughly about 26. Now, Jean says it's impossible to determine Wolverine's age with his healing powers. And they say that they have never met him before. Okay, that's important. They never met Wolverine before. So Wolverine had his mind erased in 85, according to this. So X-Men Origin Wolverines, now you're probably saying, well, Cyclops saw him. No, he didn't. Cyclops had his eyes covered. Wolverine never had any interaction in Origins Wolverine with Xavier or Cyclops. So that's important. They never saw each other. Wolverine breaks him open with his claws, the cages, and the kids go see Xavier in 85. Also in 85, according to that story, well, it would be in the 70s. We'll get to it because this is like a long lecture. I put a lot of time in this. So anyway, they never saw each other. So the helmet that Magneto has blocks Charles' powers. So we have that. Storm says Rogue is 17. I think this movie takes place in about 2000. Okay. So then we have X2. All right. I say that this movie takes place probably about a year later. Okay. And like
a year or less.
I'm willing to say a maximum of 5 years later,
See, I wouldn't say that.
but no less than 5 years.
I would say it's 6 months to a year
I'm going to give it about a year.
because you still have Bobby and all them in school.
No, I'm so sorry. I messed up my brain, my memory. This movie takes place right after this movie.
Yeah,
It has to.
okay. I was thinking. I was like,
It has to. These two are in the same year. They have to be.
okay.
They have to be for this part of the timeline to work. Okay. So Nightcrawler or Alan Cummings in this movie is roughly like 38. So Nightcrawler's older. William Stryker actor Brian Cox is about 58 here. Okay. These movies have to be months later. Have to be. Because if Stryker is like 55, 58, then if we think origins in this timeline, then Wolverine was like 40. Now, Stryker was in Vietnam and being part of a mutant government program for a long time. He was part of Project Wide Awake, which they get into more later. But remember Project Wide Awake. So Stryker was there when Wolverine went under the surgery, and Stryker says to Wolverine, that's been 15 years since your surgery, since the memory loss. So these two check out. No inconsistencies between these two whatsoever so far. It's now implied that Charles knows about Wolverine's past, but has hidden it because Logan's mind is fragile. Okay. We are introduced to Colossus here. Colossus is key. Okay. So remember, sus. Colossus is key. Why is he key? Because in this movie and this line, he is American. Very important. So we also see Hank McCoy on TV as a regular guy, which Cyclops pointed out. He has no blue flair and he's not in politics. He seems to just be a scientist. What happened here? Stryker has been at Alkaline Lakes for decades, Magneto says. Stryker says Logan and him worked together and he was an animal at the time. I put like other notes here. I said, in X-Men 1, it's established that Storm cannot use her powers unless she has the sky in front of her, which is why she can't use her powers until there's a hole in the train station's roof. But in X-Men 2, she can use her powers in that makeshift Cerebro to make a blizzard, whatever. Yes. Then the Phoenix comes. All right. Now, hey guys. All right. So, an X3 happens. X3 has to happen probably about a year.
They say it's been a year since Jean's death.
1 year, okay? Since Jean's death. She's been gone for a year. Cyclops is mourning, blah, blah, blah. Okay. This is where things kind of give a mess here, okay? X3, this movie is Sony, while Sony was sucking on its mama's tit at Woodstock, okay? That's what this is. This is like the Sony, this is where everything goes to crap. This was the first movie ever to use de-aging in a film. Did you know that? You know now. So, 20 years before this, Charles and Eric meet Jean Grey in the 1980s. Okay? We're also introduced to Jean Grey in the 80s in Apocalypse. So that kind of matches up. But in the 80s, she's much older. She's like 17. And here, she's like 10 or 12. Charles is also walking. So if he's walking in the 80s, then that means that First Class is not a part of this. But X-Men Origins could be, because he was walking when he picks up the kids in the late 70s. Okay? We never get an explanation of how Charles got into the wheelchair in this timeline. We never get it. I try to find one. You're never going to get it. Never going to get it. Never going to get it. All right. So then we come to present day. How did Beast get blue? More animalistic, out as a mutant, and in politics so fast within a year.
Well, a lot of scientists will work for, we know he was talking on TV. We don't know.
Mhm.
We have like politicians who are also, something else. Like Dr. Ben Carson, the politician, who was also a doctor, so it's easy to say he's a scientist, maybe working with the government, and then just steps into politics as the mutant liaison because they needed a mutant they could trust. It's hand wavy.
Yes. I say that I'm going to go with Tyler on this, that he had a serum and then he stopped using the serum and revealed he was a mutant and they promoted him and whatever. He was good sign mount, whatever.
Pause or point of order.
Yeah.
You know what? I like that he hadn't become blue yet, because when he meets Leech, the way he reacts feels more like he had never been back to human.
Right.
So I would say the serum and jettison the serum of this, and just he had evolved from human.
We're going to go with he didn't evolve. Okay.
See, we help each other.
That's pretty much what I pretty much had is he didn't evolve. Yeah. But I was just trying to back you up.
So we're together on this.
We are
ironing out the details.
Thanks, buddy.
That's what we do here. All about support.
All about support. So here's another inconsistency. Okay. Trask is a senator in this movie, and he's black.
But they never call him Boulevard.
But thank you, Tyler.
You're welcome.
They never called this guy Boulevard. So is it the same Trask? No, because he'd have to be like 100 years old.
I'd say no, because
so this doesn't matter.
I'd say it's just one of those names they threw out there to make us all like, ooh, but it's kind of like Smith. There's a lot of Smiths who aren't related.
There's tons. Okay, so this is where things get interesting. All right, Moira McTaggart is introduced in this movie. Okay, Moira McTaggart is also in First Class. This is a totally different Moira McTaggart because this one's a medical doctor. She's a lot younger. So this introduces a big inconsistency that a lot of people they're like, how the heck does this happen? I'm going to tell you. So in this, we're introduced to a brain dead guy. Brain dead dude.
BD.
Okay. with brain dead dude, Xavier asked, well, my first question is why would this brain dude who was born this way be kept alive for 60 years?
Ooh, Professor Bryan. Professor Bryan, I have an idea.
What is it?
My thought is one, the laws in Ireland are different about humans, so we couldn't just like let him die. Number
Okay.
two, maybe they kept him alive to study the brain, how it develops and how the body would develop with a brain dead.
Very interesting answer, sir.
Thank you.
Very good answer, sir. Now, so keep in mind about this brain dead dude. All right. Storm and Charles know Beast in this movie, and they're old friends, but they never acknowledged Beast before. So, how they work together? Like, we never get that real answer.
It's one of those things I hate in movies where like it's the retconning, but you're like, okay, I'll go with it. It's like, you have friends in your past, I have friends in my past, and we never mentioned,
Yeah.
but still kind of like, I wish
It's-
the script.
It's true. But he says that Gene and Charles were his first students, but he never mentions Hank. But because Hank wasn't there, we're just going to go with that. Gene kills Charles. She kills Scott. Beast puts on a uniform jacket and says it used to fit. So that means Beast was part of the team. I put a note in here. I was like, with all these adults heading into this fight and Charles and Gene dead, who the hell's watching those kids?
Watch themselves, man. The last kids.
Also, I put in here, why the heck didn't they just have Leech walk up to Gene?
Oh, I love that. When you said that, I did not want to say that because I love that. I was like, Brian's got it right there.
Like, all they had to do was literally throw this kid at her or just have him walk up.
Because they made the Phoenix a mental thing,
Yeah.
not an entity.
Not an
It
entity.
didn't work perfectly.
It would have worked. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Exactly.
Look, game recognizes game.
Game recognized game, bro. Gene is killed by Logan. Magneto is depowered, supposedly. Storm takes over the school. Beast becomes United Nations ambassador. And somehow Charles, in a post-credit scene, when post-credit scenes weren't even a thing,
I know.
transfers his consciousness into Brain Dead Dude and says, hello, Moira. Now, I will answer this riddle for you because it comes from the mouth of the creator. In a director's commentary for this film.
We're going to quote Brett Ratner here. We're going to quote Brett Ratner.
Yeah.
All right.
But in a director's commentary.
Bring on the rat.
Okay. The writers and director said they transferred his consciousness into the body of his twin brother.
Yeah.
So now I know what you're gonna say, but I'm gonna get there.
Okay.
I know what you're thinking. Why is he in a wheelchair? I'll get there. So, well, I'll just say it now. So, how's he in a wheelchair? I'm gonna say that this dude has not moved his muscles in 60 years, and he probably can't walk. But everything else kind of works.
You can say that, or the fact that the consciousness of Xavier has accepted the fact that he is paralyzed for so long that he couldn't exist psychologically in a body that is fully functional because he couldn't accept that reality.
I also wrote that. As a possibility. I like it. Now we can say it was due to a sentinel attack,
Or
the man's body.
As soon as he got up and started walking, he fell and cut his spine and paralyzed himself.
We can do that too. Okay. All right. Now, whew, I guess I'm kind of glad that you kind of went quick because I'm doing like a whole entire lecture. By the way, there will be a test in the morning. Okay. So
Mine just makes it so much simpler. But I like this.
I know, but I'm going through every inconsistency. I want to hit everything. Okay. Now we have Origins Wolverine. If I can even remember how to spell Wolverine. Okay. And Origins Wolverine. Okay. We go into 1845. Okay. And 1845 is when this movie starts. And Logan's probably about 10. So James Howlett is like 10 years old. Victor is about 15. And Victor is sharpening his nails. So he already went through mutation change.
So that means I would put him, Victor has already started puberty. Because usually that's when they say the power's onset. So I would put that, Logan's maybe between 10 and 12.
10 and 12. Yep, totally. So for some reason, Logan takes his father's name after he kills him accidentally. You all watch the movie. Okay. So Wolverine has bone claws. They fought in all major wars. Okay. Victor is becoming more of an animal as things go on, he's losing himself. Logan also has longer hair, which is pretty key.
Oh, can I just say that my favorite shot in X-Men 2
X-Men 2, yeah.
is where you can tell they went back and filmed it later, is Wolverine's hair when he like sees the wolf at Alkali Lake, because his hair is huge and curved. Like you can tell,
Yeah, it is.
oh, this was shot later. Like it's one of those, I'm just like, oh my gosh, you guys are
Like,
It looks
it's like curled up.
it looks
Yeah.
almost like the wig thing that Dracula wore in Bram Stoker's Dracula for Gary Oldman. Like it's like a beehive.
So this is key too. All right. So this movie supposedly takes place in 1973. It starts, okay, which is the end of Vietnam.
Okay, I see what you're going. Yeah, okay.
So 1973. What other movie takes place in 1973? Days of Future Past. Well, where Wolverine goes. So what that means is, and because his hair is different, right there, and Wolverine in 1973 in Days of Future Past is in a bed with a woman. But in Origins in 1973, he's locked up with Victor, which means that this movie cannot match it up with First Class and Days. It cannot. Can't do it. So we already answered that for you. Okay. But in 1973, that's where it takes place. Okay. We meet Deadpool, Agent Zero, Blob, Bolt, Wraith, and adamantium is discovered. Okay. So Deadpool can't exist in this world either, because if Deadpool's in the 70s, then, well, I mean, you can put in the mutant factor and like his healing power, like he doesn't age much. But in that movie, he didn't.
They didn't really explain Deadpool's abilities.
That he didn't. Just that he's very fast with swords. Totally different powers. This is a different Deadpool. Okay. So adamantium is discovered. And then the rest of the movie takes place in 1979.
So you're saying he only worked for 73. So are you saying there's no time jump from when they get them out of
No, when he gets out of prison,
they go straight into the same year when they
yes,
raid the village?
So he's already been working for Stryker for 6 years.
It wouldn't be 6 years.
Yeah.
Because if you're saying that they get out in 73, but the rest of the movie takes place in 79, there's a time gap from when he left Stryker.
Yeah, we're getting there.
So when he got back to Stryker.
There's a 2-year time gap.
Okay, so that means the movie would take place in 81.
The movie mostly takes place in 81.
Okay.
My apologies. Yeah.
I'm just following your logic. I like
No,
your logic.
It's a whole class.
Okay.
Okay.
What do you do in class? You ask clarifying questions.
Thank you. You're my favorite student.
Thank you.
So they get rescued in 73. So it cannot get in the same timeline as Days. It can't, because it's 2 different Wolverines. So 1979 is when they discover adamantium and Wolverine leaves. Okay. So he worked for Stryker for like 6 years. Okay. So the rest of the movie, we get like a 2-year. Also, I wanted to add this too. Wolverine said he's making as a lumberjack $18,500 in 1979.
18.5.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You know what? I messed up. You were right. So in 1979 is when this movie takes place. It's not 2 years later. It's 6 years later that he's with Silver Fox in Canada.
Okay.
That he's with Kayla.
I knew there was a jump.
Yeah, so it's a 6-year jump since he left, and they discovered adamantium in like 73.
So that'd be okay. So if he got out of prison in 73,
Mhm.
that means he barely ever worked for Stryker.
Yeah. Pretty much.
So I was thinking like he worked for Stryker for years, then left and did the time jump, which puts the movie, like I said, in the 80s, is what I thought.
You can do that, because all we know is that it's 6 years later from when he left.
Okay.
So you can say that they've been working for a while.
Because I was saying, I put it in the 80s, that after Vietnam.
Let's put it in the 80s. You know what? To be even safer. Well, I think there is a reason this is in 79, which I'll get to. Anyway. Okay. But Logan says he's making $18,500 in 1979, which is equivalent of $80,000 with inflation today. He's doing okay.
That's in Canada, though.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, it is Canadian. Okay. He gets the brown and orange jacket from the farmer.
Mom pocket.
Which Mon can't. So that makes sense. We're also introduced to Scott Summers here. Okay. And he looks about 17, so born in 62. I'm gonna say the Scott Summers is born in 62.
Okay.
We meet Gambit, blah blah blah. Stryker's been working for me since 59, and I am just going to skip ahead. Okay. So so because of these things, these movies are not connected. They can't be. This movie is also not connected to Days of Future Past. Okay. So we now have established that we have two separate timelines. That Origins is its own thing, and that these three movies are their own thing so far. Okay. All right. Now we have First Class.
You're going in release order.
Yeah, pretty much. Kind of.
Yeah.
I'm putting in the order that I would watch these movies.
You watch First Class.
Or no, I was going in release order.
Okay, well, see.
I'm screwing up. I will say at the end of this what way I would watch these.
Okay.
Okay, so I apologize. Okay. Had brain fart. Okay. So First Class happens in 1962. Now, you're probably, you know what? I'm going to,
Cuban missile crisis. Puts it right there.
yeah, Cuban Missile Crisis. Okay. So I almost want to go to a jump ahead, but whatever. Okay. So First Class happens in 1962. Okay. I'll get to it in a bit, but this movie exists because of things that happen in Days of Future Past. Okay. I will explain why. Days is going to be a while. How long is this podcast?
Like 40 minutes.
Okay, cool.
We're at 46 minutes.
Okay. Hopefully I can get done in 45 minutes.
Jeez.
I think I can. Okay. So, and First Class exists because of Days of Future Past. I will explain why. Okay. So in First Class, well, I'm just gonna make it easier. So the Days of Future Past. Future, you know what? No, I don't want to say that yet. My apologies. First Class. Let's focus on First Class. Okay. So First Class also starts in 1944. Okay. You know what, buddy? I think I might want to say this in the way that you should watch this movies, because I think that might screw up. So we're not going to go that yet. Okay. So now I want to jump to something. I'm so sorry, guys. All right. In this timeline, after X3 is the Wolverine. So you can watch this first, right here, Origins Wolverine, and you'll be fine. But you have to put in your head that it's its own thing.
Yeah, I thought the Wolverine referenced Origins. So I thought there was some sort of comic, but
Not that I can remember. Not that I can remember.
okay.
But this has to be its own thing. It's just its own universe, its own thing. Okay. So in the Wolverine, in 1945, Wolverine is in a pit. So 1945, Wolverine's in the pit and he meets Silver Samurai. Okay. I can't remember his real name. I'm just going to call him Silver Samurai. Okay. And Wolverine has bone. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah. In this, he has bone claws. So this is 1945. It's, it matches up. They didn't give him animated claws, which would have ruined the whole thing. He has nightmares of Jean, which relate to X3. He has nightmares of killing Jean. It haunts him. This movie is awesome. Suggest you watch that.
So underrated.
This movie could happen in 2011. The movie came out in 2013. I'm going to say this movie happens probably 2011. Yes. So he gets his animated claws cut off by Silver Samurai. Bones can grow back, so I'm not worried about that. But it's key that he loses the adamantium claws. That's important. Then in the post-credit scene, we get a 2-year time jump to 2013, roughly. The time of this is inconsistent of what year it is. Just say early 2010s, whatever. Okay. We see a movie in the air quotes of Trask Technologies, a company we don't know if it is that Black Senator from X3. We don't know, but we never get this guy's name. We just get Trask. So it could be a different Trask, different situation, but we're going to go with that. Okay. Magneto has powers back. Now, at the end of X2, we see him move a chess piece a little bit.
X3.
I'm sorry, in X3. My apologies. In X3. I'm just going to say that the cure doesn't work.
Yeah, that's
the only thing I'm going to say.
Because that's one thing that the Rogue Cut pointed out even more.
Yeah.
And I think just from that director that I was talking about,
yeah,
they just mishandled. They could have used Rogue in the movie without having to create the whole side story that they did. They could have just had her there, helping. Period.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, now we're getting to the game changer, where everything changes now. Okay, so hopefully you guys can read this stuff. Let me fix this up here. The dogs are going crazy. Okay. All right. So we know X-Men Origin Wolverine's its own thing. Okay. So, and then we have X-Men, we have X2, and we have X3, and we have the Wolverine. Okay. So these movies all connected. So you can watch those all that way. Okay. So, you can start with Origin Wolverine. I'll draw like a better thing later. Okay. But now in this movie, we have Days of Future Past, which changes everything. Okay. Now, before you watch this this movie, watch First Class. Don't worry, guys. I'll write the way to do it. Don't worry. So we do First Class. So after you watch these three, you can skip this movie. It doesn't matter. You can watch it whenever you want. It's its own thing. So timeline, X-Men, X-Men 2, X-Men 3, the Wolverine. Origins, you can watch whenever the heck you want. Probably watch it first, whatever. But Days of Future Past, so after Wolverine, you want to watch First Class. Okay? So I really did put a lot to this. Okay, Days of Future Past. So this starts a new timeline. Okay. So we started in 1944. We meet Magneto, same as 1981. Magneto is 14 in this movie in the start. So he's born in about 1930. Okay. So Magneto was born in 1930. Okay. We meet Charles Xavier, like kind of the same time, at similar scene. Charles was born, and we meet Charles in 1944, same year. Charles is 12. So Charles was born, we're just going to put PX, was born in 1932. And he seems to be up to about 10, 12. He has his powers. We meet Raven. She seems to be 8 to 10. Her age is irrelevant because she's a shapeshifter. Blah, blah, blah. Magneto, his tattoo is consistent in all these movies. That number is consistent. The problem with that number, though, is that number on it would mean that he was there during Auschwitz, and there's an age inconsistency with that of how old he is. But we're just going to go with it. We're just going to let go. Now, how old is Xavier when he meets Magneto? According to this movie, he's 17.
But you've already established that First Class
is its own thing.
So he doesn't. It's
right. It's its own thing. But I was trying to see if this could match up together. So I did my research. The drinking age in England is in 1962 was 18. So Charles has to be at least 18.
But he's teaching at Oxford.
Right. So, but it contradicts with his first movie. I'm telling you why this movie cannot go before this movie.
But we already established that.
We already did. But I'm getting into it more. I love you. So anyway, it contradicts each other. Moving on.
I mean, like we said, First Class is a great film, but it's definitely was designed to be a reboot.
Yep.
That they backed out of when they did Days of Future Past.
Yep. So in this movie, Charles is about 30 years old. Okay. So he's 30 years old. Magneto, 32. Charles meets Hank McCoy, who accidentally reveals he's a mutant. Hank in this movie is probably Beast was born, I would say, probably 1942. So Beast in this movie is about 20.
He's supposed to be a genius.
He's a genius. They say he graduated some Oxford or something.
Yeah, early, like he's
Whatever. Hank builds Three-Bone Blackbird. So, and we also meet Alex Summers. So Havoc is like 20.
I said I've been between 18 and 20.
18,
You
20.
just
I
joined
threw
that.
20 in there.
Yep.
Make it even. Okay. We see Wolverine in a bar, and his hair is not longer like Origins, thus proving once again this is his own thing. Hank ingests himself with a cure. Hank turns blue and furry. Blah blah blah. That movie is its own timeline. Blah blah blah. Now, where it really matters, Days of Future Past. All right. So in Days of Future Past, it starts in New York City. The M symbol is on people's eyes, blah, blah, blah. We find out that Kitty can project the consciousness of people into the past. This is key. So we find out that Kitty has been doing this several times. So because she's been messing with time several times, Kitty right here, it's Kitty time travel. We'll put Kitty TT. She doing that time travel so many times has created a ripple effect, which created First Class. I'm just going to go with it. So, because when she sends Wolverine back in the 70s, some things are already established. So when Kitty's messing with time travel, there's a quote in Days about the river, which I'll say in a second. But things are inevitable, but when you throw a pebble in there, it changes things. So when Kitty is changing people in the past, this eliminates this timeline completely. So her doing this, everything in Days of Future Past eliminates this. It's gone. Doesn't matter. So all the inconsistencies I mentioned, they don't matter. You can just go with it. Okay. But her messing with time, I'm going to say created some inconsistencies in here. We'll go with that. And also is why in this new timeline, the ages are all weird because as she has messed with time, and don't forget in the road cut, I watched the road cut the other day, but I watched the other one too. The other one's a little bit more consistent, but in the road cut, she loses Wolverine. Like she loses him because he sees Stryker. So because he sees Stryker, we lose Wolverine for a bit. So that can also explain all these inconsistencies with ages. Like people don't really age. It's just whatever. Okay. So we meet in the 70s, Bolivar Trask and the Sentinels. Yakety smackety. Xavier says that it started less than 50 years ago. So Days of Future Past, this definitely happens in 1973.
You mean in the past part?
Yes, the past part. So the future part, this part here, it does happen in 2023. Because he said 50 years. He says nearly 50 years.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Well, so Xavier says it started less than 50 years ago. So we can put it between 40 to 50 years.
Yeah, 2023 worse because you got to give us so much thing for it to get that bad.
Yes. So I'm going to say this movie happens in 2023. Bobby and Kitty are a couple in this movie. So I think you can do the road cut and have it work, have Rogue be there. I like it better. I say no road cut.
Yeah.
Because when you throw Rogue in this, I'm just going to say she died.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, we know that a lot of mutants have died and we know the cure didn't work. And the fact that mutants are being killed off, it makes sense.
And Beast's powers are now like a werewolf because the serum has changed. Because in First Class, he's more of a kitty cat, like a lion. And every other thing after that, he's like a werewolf. It's the serum. It's just his mutants evolving. And Magneto Prison Pentagon. Yep, I already talked about that. Okay, so the quote that Beast says in this movie is time is immutable. It's like a river. You can throw a pebble into it, create a ripple, but the current always corrects itself. No matter what you do, the river just keeps flowing in the same direction. Okay, so Wolverine tells Charles to find Scott and Jean and Storm and reform the X-Men. which will lead into Apocalypse. Magneto's helmet is different in this movie, which I'm going to say he had multiple helmets. Is this the best Magneto uniform? Yes.
Yes.
Magneto throws Wolverine into the Potomac at the end of this movie. And then we see that Mystique is posing as Stryker. It's weird. I'm just gonna go with the Kitty Ripples, and Mystique just like leaves him with Stryker to make sure it happens. I'm just gonna throw that in there. Because
My thought was she gets him out, it delays him until the 80s when Stryker actually finds him, because
yeah, there you go.
because Stryker gets fascinated by him when he meets him and then just hunts him down.
Yes. We now Wolverine wakes up in this new timeline. Rogue is wearing gloves, meaning that the cure didn't work.
Yep.
We also see Kitty is teaching with Colossus.
Yeah.
Hank McCoy is alive. There's a line in Days of Future Past where Beast asks, do I make it? Wolverine says, nope, you don't. You die. So Beast is back. The school is thriving. Jean is alive. Scott is too, with stupid ass shades. Wolverine and Charles know what happened. Now, some people say because they know what happened, that Days of Future Past can work with Logan. No, it can't. Wolverine doesn't remember anything post 1973. Now, here's where I get really kind of weird. So, on Wolverine's clock, when he wakes up, it does not say 2023. It just says Thursday, June 29th. Me being who I am, I looked up what years in this time area does Thursday or does June 29th fall on a Thursday? Because if we have him coming back in 2023, then at the end, it's clearly that these movies are wiped out. But if he comes back in 2023, then Jean is going to be like 6 years old and Scott's going to be pushing 62. And the professor is like, 80 years old, something like that. So Wolverine's clock doesn't say the year. It says Thursday, June 29th. Now in 2023, June 29th was a Thursday, but June 29th was also a Thursday in 1995, 2000, 2017, and 2006. In 2006, The Last Stand X-Men 3 was released. So I say that Wolverine wakes up in 2006.
See that? I get behind that.
So if he wakes up in 2006, then Jean is not far from her age that she was in X3, and that matches up.
The only thing, there's really nothing that contradicts it other than Kitty's teaching when she would still be a student, but she would be filling in or student teaching or whatever. So there's nothing that really...
I thought about that too. And I don't know, I'm kind of okay with it.
Yeah, I'm gonna say again, there's nothing that you can really argue factual.
Yeah.
Professor Peters, there's one thing you did miss.
What?
That I have my own headcanon for. At the end of The Wolverine, he has his bone claws. And,
oh yeah. I'm so sorry.
And in Days, when in the future timeline, they're back to metal.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah,
my rationale.
I'm so sorry
that Magneto just pulled the metal from other parts of the skeleton over.
I did have that in my notes, but I overlooked it. So I appreciate you saying that, sir. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that Magneto found some other adamantium and just did it.
Like I said, like just like any other metal, you could, if he can manipulate metal, you just pull it off his bones to cover the flaws. That was my headcanon for it. We've seen it before in comics.
Yes. And I'm pretty much just going to skip ahead really fast here. Okay. So Apocalypse happens, blah, blah, blah. And then Dark Phoenix happens. So an important thing, though, in Apocalypse. So let me fix this again. My apologies, everybody. Oh, I probably should have did the spray. There we go. Beautiful. Beautiful. Look at that. All right. This next part is probably going to go much faster. Okay. So we have Origins. So Origins It's its own thing. Origins is its own thing. So this is where you should watch these movies. Origins is its own thing. Then X-Men. Then X2. Then X3. Then the Wolverine. Okay. Now, have over here. Yeah. Okay. So that's its own thing. Then we have, then after the Wolverine, you're going to watch First Class. And then we have Days of Future Past. Okay. And because of Days of Future Past, it wipes out this whole thing and makes it irrelevant. So doesn't matter. Put a DM, slide a DM there. Okay. Then you're going to watch Apocalypse. If I spell that right, I hope I do. All right. In Apocalypse, this movie happens in 1983. And 1983 has a new origin for Wolverine of how he gets his adamantium. That movie contradicts origin of Wolverine, further proves it's its own thing. Also, that whole scene feels forced in the movie.
Yeah.
It's just kind of thrown in there so that we can get origin for Wolverine.
So we can just get Hugh Jackman back because we can't really actually move Hugh Jackman show about it.
Yes, further proves it. It also, if you take that whole part out, it shaves off like a half hour of the movie. I looked it up. I paid attention. So anywho, then we have Dark Phoenix. Okay, I'll just put DP. DP, Dark Phoenix. And Dark Phoenix, it is what it is. But at the end of Dark Phoenix, we get, hold on, let me make sure I don't miss my notes here. Oh, this is very important too. I'm so sorry. So in Apocalypse, we also get the Essex Corporation. Okay. I can't forget that. So in this, so just remember this, Essex. If you do not know who Nathaniel Essex is, that's Mr. Sinister.
You should know that from our last
You should know it. So Dark Phoenix happens, but Apocalypse reference Essex Corporation. They take Wolverine's blood. So just remember blood. Okay, very important. And blood of other mutants. So Dark Phoenix happens at the end of Dark Phoenix. Jean dies, blah, blah, blah. But Jean sacrificed herself. Charles retires as the teacher. Hank is the new headmaster. And the school is now named the Jean Grey School. Okay? And Beast Head. Because the school is renamed, that means that if any movie after it has Charles's name, it's not in this timeline. New Mutants notes. All right. There is a scene. Let me move a little bit. Oh, okay. Yeah, it should be in here. Okay. In New Mutants, I'm going to put this New Mutants. New Mutants is pretty much like you watch it. What you can kind of watch it. Well, you want to watch New Mutants basically around the time you watch Logan.
It would be in Logan's past, though.
Huh?
It would be set in Logan.
Maybe.
It'd have to.
I'm gonna have to make a new board, but or make a new album.
Logan's set even farther in the future.
So in New Mutants, when they face Rays, when they confront, or when Danny is in a meeting with Rays, she sees into her, like, sees visions of what she's afraid of, stuff like that, and in the interview, whatever. The same footage that is shown in Logan on the video that Logan watches is the same footage that is in New Mutants. It's exactly the same. So the kids being born and created and in prison, and it's the same thing.
See, my problem with New Mutants is they made the movie, then they remade the movie, then they remade the movie.
Correct. So, but you're probably asking yourself, well, how the hell, if these have the same footage, like, do they line up together? No, Because in Logan, they say that no mutants born, no M for 25 years.
Yeah, I would say it's even farther in the future.
You could, but Ray's worked at the same lab that Gabriella did in Logan. They're not in the same universe though, which they're separate reshoots. Okay, now and then we have Deadpool as we wrap this up. Two and then Deadpool, yeah, D, yeah, D, P, W, whatever. Okay. All right. So important things to realize. Okay. So this timeline is its own thing. First Class, Days of Future Past, Apocalypse, whatever. You're gonna watch Origins is its own thing. You're gonna watch X-Men, X-Men 2, X-Men 3, Wolverine. Then you're gonna watch First Class, Days of Future Past. Days of Future Past eliminates this. Didn't happen. Then Apocalypse, then then Dark Phoenix. Then you can watch Deadpool. Deadpool is in its own universe. Why is Deadpool in its own universe? Because in New Mutants, we are introduced to Eliana Rasputin. Eliana Rasputin has a Russian accent, but there is no reference in this movie and in Deadpool of her and Colossus being brother and sister, and they are. So, and because Colossus is Russian in this movie, because he's Russian, that means that this cannot be in this timeline where Colossus is American. Can't be in this timeline where Colossus is American because they're play the same dude. Can't be in New Mutants because there's no reference to them being brother and sister. That's not happening. Logan is its own thing. So you watch Deadpool, then as you watch Deadpool, you get into Logan. And Logan dies. We also get references to
X-Men Origins.
what's that?
Yeah, references the X-Men Origins.
Okay, my Logan notes. My apologies, guys. So Logan has Whiskey Dick of the Claws. Now, because he has Whiskey Dick of the Claws, it could mean that Deadpool Wolverine is set to pull Logan out of that timeline and not die. We don't know yet. But his claws here are adamantium as well. This movie does happen in 2029 because his driver license expires in December 2029, and they say it on the radio. There's a grave in Logan that is front and center and has the name Peters, which is my last name. So it means I'm going to die within 5 years. It's been nice. Also, the villains in there work for Alkali Lake, blah, 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 blah. Charles has dementia. So because he has dementia, there's been a theory that it's the same, that's the same Xavier from Days of Future Past, that he has dementia now because he's in that new body. There's a theory about it. It's its own universe. It has to be.
Because one thing just to note is if Logan was after Days of Future Past in the timeline, it undercuts everything that they did in Days of Future Past. Yeah, it's just we wiped out mutants completely.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
That's one of the most skipped over parts of that movie is the food additives.
Yes, and now we don't know why. We don't know why. Where mutants are, but they reference the X-Men in New Mutants that they exist. But these kids have been locked up for years, so the X-Men could be gone. But because of the factor that mutants have been born for 25 years, they have to be in their own universe. Okay. Charles also references the Statue of Liberty. He references that Logan was a cage fighter when he found him, and now he's a failure. So it's possible in this universe that X-Men 1 did happen in that universe. It's its own thing.
Like I said in my theories, like you go through that it branches a timeline doesn't mean certain things aren't the same.
Sure.
Histories did happen.
Yeah.
So
Also, the dog tags in Logan, they say Logan. They don't say Wolverine. Further proving it's its own thing. Yeah. Okay. Now, when Deadpool 2 happens, we know Deadpool messes with the timeline.
At the end of Deadpool 2, yes.
At the end of Deadpool 2. Now, this is where my theory takes crazy turn. And I'll finish on this, obviously. So, Deadpool 2, we know he messes with the timeline. Deadpool 2 erases X-Men Origins from happening. So this timeline doesn't happen. He kills Deadpool. Now, there's two things that could have happened with this. Either this movie's wiped out completely. This is where my crazy theory comes in. Well, part one of my crazy theory. I need water. I need a drink. Okay. I'm all sweaty. Nobody's my wife here? No. Okay. So in Deadpool 2, he messes with time. Now he kills that Deadpool in there. You could say that he eliminates this movie. And it's its own world, so it doesn't matter. But you also could say that he eliminates that Deadpool in there. Okay? But what else does he do?
Kills Ryan Reynolds from being.
He kills Ryan Reynolds from being Green Lantern. What movie was made after Green Lantern, Tyler? So many.
First Class.
Well, also, that stars Ryan Reynolds. Deadpool.
Okay, yeah. But I was thinking like all his other movies. I'm like,
so the Deadpool universe can view all these other universes because Deadpool can break the fourth wall. In Deadpool's universe, he can see everything. He's aware of everything because he's the Marvel Jesus, and he's meta. So because he can see everything, is going to tie into DPW,
which we will revisit all this. Not as long.
Not as long.
After we said Deadpool.
But because he prevented Ryan Reynolds from being Deadpool, it's possible in DPW that what the threat is that he wiped out Deadpool from ever becoming a movie and wiped out his existence. And he has to correct that. Now, my last theory, closing on this, I promise. Essex has been taking blood. He took blood in Apocalypse. He took blood in New Mutants. He took blood in Logan. I say, and Essex is in Deadpool 2. I say that Mr. Sinister is also aware of all these multiverses. And Sinister has been going to every different universe, taking DNA from all these mutants that matter and have power. And we haven't seen him in these universes because he has been hopping to different multiverses. Your villain in Secret Wars, ladies and gentlemen, is Mr. Sinister.
How do you explain the X-Men Apocalypse team appearing in Deadpool 2?
Oh, it's funny you say that because I put that in my notes, but I overlooked it. So that is Deadpool. That is just Deadpool opening up a portal. That is just Deadpool viewing the other multiverses, showing you once again how we can view the other multiverses at any time.
So you're saying there's
questions after
1, 2,
quite a lot.
5. So there's 5 different existences of the X-Men, of the Fox X-Men films.
Yes. Which I will make pretty right now. Okay. So there is a theory in Secret Wars that they are trying to get the heroes that have the most power to battle together, whatever. That's why I think Sinister could be a factor. I mean, it'd be cool. If I'm right about this, hey me. Okay. So timelines. So T1, we have X1, X2, X3. Gonna give it to you. The Wolverine.
could just write TW.
I could write TW. All right, TW. Okay. Then, and new timeline, whatever.
T2.
We have first. What's that?
It's a T2. Timeline 2.
Yeah, what am I doing? T2. We have first class. Days of future past. Why did I put a B? Because I want to write my name. I don't know. Days of future past. And then X apocalypse.
And
then Dark Phoenix. Yep. Okay. Then we have XO, its own thing.
Timeline 3.
And then timeline 3, we have New Mutants. And then we have, and then, well, New Mutants is its own thing. X-Men Origins is its own thing.
So that's what I'm saying. X-Men Origins will be timeline 3. New Mutants will be timeline 4. And Blue will be timeline 5.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And the Deadpool will be timeline 6.
Timeline 3 is going to be New Mutants. T4 is Logan. And then I think I'm confused with my own time.
Just then T5.
Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have five movies.
Yep. X-Men Origins is T5.
Oh, yeah. T5. Well, that was meant to be T3, but T5 is XO.
And then T6 will be Deadpool's.
T6 is Deadpool. Deadpool, whatever. DP2. And then maybe Deadpool Wolverine, maybe. Okay. And then, yeah. So we have 6 different timelines.
Are they timeline or are they more like there's 6 different alternate realities?
6 different alternate realities. My apologies.
Because yours are
Yours
aren't timelines, you are alternate realities.
not the verse. Any questions? I think I covered everything and then some.
Yeah. But I thought we were trying to clean it up to how it all works, but you like had made it how it all doesn't work. Which
No, this works now.
But I mean, like, yeah, it works by just looking at all individuals, pretty much. But yeah,
You have to put them in separate timelines. You have to. It's the only way it works.
I mean, yeah, some of them you have to, for sure. You have to put First Class, Days of Future Past.
Yeah,
that's to be in 2 different categories, and Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix have to be in their own thing because the inconsistencies are. But
you have to.
Let's have the good people who listen.
So thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed my college class and Tyler's teaser trailer because he didn't take as much time.
I need to.
He didn't need to.
Because by just making it a fulcrum point and it splits, you clean out everything.
But I want to make sure that you couldn't come to me and say, what about this? What about this? I thought of this. so timeline 1, X1, X2, X3, to the Wolverine. Then first class, Days of Future Past, X-Men Apocalypse, Dark Phoenix, New Mutants is his own thing, Logan's his own thing, X-Men Origins is his own thing, and Deadpool is already its own thing. So thank you guys for being with us in our video thing in our teaching class. I hope you learned something. I hope it helped you. Hope it didn't make you more confused, which it probably did. But you can find me Pride in the Guys, and you can find me gravely amusing, of course. Tyler, thank you, Tyler.
You're welcome.
Come on, Tyler. Come on. Yeah. So we have Tyclops here. Thank you, Tyclops. Where can they find you?
Krypton Report everywhere.
Everywhere. So when you need comic knowledge and maybe a headache, don't cry. Just call Bryan the Guys.